Welcome to the Latin Wealth Podcast, a podcast dedicated to educating the Latino community about entrepreneurship, investing, and business.
Yo, what's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome to another episode to Wealth Wednesday. Super excited about today's episode as we got some dope topics that we're going to be jumping into today. First and foremost, we're going to be talking a little real estate today. And if you guys haven't heard, an article just came out that said 40% of American renters are now convinced they'll never own a home. 40% of renters. Crazy, right? In addition to that, we're going to be diving into another article that came out that said a $1 million wealth gap now divides white families from Black and Hispanic. We're going to dive into those numbers and kind of talk about what's going on as well. With that being said, welcome to another episode to Wealth Wednesday, like I said, on the Latin Wealth platform. Ready to jump into these conversation. Unfortunately, we're not in the studio today, but we're still going to have a phenomenal conversation as usual. Jeremiah, how you feeling today?
I'm back at the house, man, but I'm still excited about the stuff that's going on. I think it was epic. I think those 2 weeks, man, were some epic experiences. We got to make that happen again.
Yeah, that was fun. We'll definitely make that happen again. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into it today. So as we stated, 40% of American renters are now convinced that they'll never own a home. So there was basically a study that was done with 1,000 renters, and they were asked two different questions. Do you believe you will ever own your home in your future? And the second question that was asked, which of the following are the reasons you aren't likely to purchase a home in the near future? All right. So with that being said, here are some of the responses from people. Amongst those people that answered the first question in a negative fashion, and it typically is a lack of affordability, proved to be the biggest obstacle to home ownership, which 44% of people picking that response. And then other leading reasons for continuing in rent include the ability to save for a down payment. So 35% of people said that. Ability to afford a mortgage payment, 33% of people, and then high mortgage rate was 32% of people, and then just 14% of the respondents said they are not interested in owning a home at all. So, very interesting, and it's crazy because there was a very similar survey that was done last year from May to June, and they found that only 27% of renters felt that having a home was out of their reach. So last year was 27%. This year jumped to 40%. Felt like I ain't never owning a home. Crazy. Jeremiah, how you feeling about this? I have a couple talking points and more statistics I want to throw out there, but what are your thoughts about this article that came out?
That's a huge increase going from 27 to 40. You usually don't have that type of increase when you're like talking to people. You don't see that type of increase. So 13% increase is huge in a year over year in any metric, right? Whether it was like investments or somebody like that, that's a huge increase. That's a huge number of people that decided to say, I don't think I'll ever own a home. I feel like, and just looking at the categories and the questions and the way that people answered, I feel like people are starting to get a more vivid picture now, and it's actually starting to be more publicly, publicly posted. And I see a lot of different posts. I see a lot of the people, the articles that are coming from very reputable companies and journalism for people saying, I don't know if that, that dream or what initially was stated, if that's even realistic anymore. Housing prices have soared. Now you got mortgage rates, obviously, that are above sevens, that went back up above 7 here recently. So I think it's people being smart. For me, myself, you guys know, you've watched the podcast. I try to be as subjective as possible. Objective, I should say. Subject is the person. So I try to be as objective as possible. Myself personally, my personal feelings, I would be probably in the 14% that I don't desire that at that point. Like I don't really I don't buy into certain things, but I do know that there are different instances in that everybody's going to be people coming from different sides of things, right? With that being said, now the way that things are with the mortgage rates and with the cost of a home, Chris, I think I sent you something and we were talking about it in 1980, right? That whole thing where it was like, oh, well, the mortgage rates were higher then. That's what a lot of people say it was higher
Mm-hmm.
then. Yeah, but the cost of the home was, you know,
Cheap.
$60,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, 14% of 60,000 is much different than 8% or 7% interest on a $740,000 home here in California. That's the median cost of a house. So if I'm sitting and I'm thinking about that, most people have to earn six figures to own or be able to afford a house at that rate. If you're not earning six figures, and most people, well, in California, well, it's easier to earn six figures. True, but the cost of living negates
Mm-hmm.
you increasing that, right? So like in Texas, I was just home in Texas. You can earn 85, $90,000 and be in a good place. You don't even have to earn six figures and still be living very comfortable. But I think that overall as a nation, people are starting to get more in term or actually now more grips with what's happening in the housing market. And it seems like it's kind of affecting people are starting to realize that and it's starting to affect their thought process. I don't know about you, Chris.
No, 100%. And we spoke about this a couple times
Mm,
that we think that people are waking up and realizing the American dreams that once was is not what it is today.
right.
And I think you may have reposted it, and I totally agree where people value peace, they value security more than owning a home. Also, people value flexibility, the ability
Yeah,
to go travel, to go do
sure.
whatever, right? People are starting to put in their values in other things besides a home nowadays. Now, not to say that there may be a huge group of people out there that still is their dream. That's still what they want. And we've talked about it a couple of times. It's important to identify what type of life you envision for yourself, what type of life that you want. Some people may not be into traveling and they just want a home in the middle of Texas. And they'll be cool with that, with some land.
Cool.
All props to you, right? But we believe it's important to identify like what it is how it is that you want to live. And it's also important to recognize, and I think we should do an episode on this, like what is the true American dream nowadays, right?
What does that look like?
What
I
does it
think the
look like?
demographic of people that are doing that as we start to see the population shift more to tan, as they say, but more to brown, right? Which is just a collect. That's a good thing. I see it as because
It
it's
is.
it's a mix of different people. Everyone's mixed up, and that's good. It's a melting pot. America's a melting pot of cultures and people from different countries and ethnicities and nationalities. And so as you start to brown, that means everybody's just kind of mixed in the
Makes sense.
gumbo
Mm,
pot in that, and then everybody just comes out kind of in the middle. So I think I think that's a good thing. So I think the American dream is going to shift based upon the demographic of what's the majority of the population. I also think that a lot of the feelings and the sentiments that we have right now, this is post pandemic.
hmm
So I think people are post-pandemic. I think the pandemic had a lot to do with people reshifting their priorities. Because
hmm
pre-pandemic, you could have asked those very same people,
For
and this was
sure.
before they lost their job. This is before you see, millions of people worldwide passing and perishing. And I think that reshifted people to say, I actually just want to live comfortably. I really
Mm,
just I want to be able to spend time with my family. I really more like, I don't think the house is really that important. The status symbols that I thought were important pre-pandemic, I don't feel that they're the same post-pandemic. Because really, at the end of the day, none of that stuff kind of really matters. I'm really just more want to, like you, Chris, you did a trip with your family. And when we talked about it, that was more important, right? You're like, yo, I think I'm shifting my mindset to be more like, I need more of this. That's
hmm
more important to me than having a big house on the hill. And I
100%.
think a lot of people are starting to feel that same way.
100%. And my wife and I would definitely say we're in that 14% as well. Like we literally sit down and be like, we're good where we're at. Like we love where we live. We love the amenities. We love the flexibilities or whatever else comes with renting.
Has
But
that
we just
shifted for you? Were you once maybe more another way, but has that shifted?
so and I think for sure, 100%, like moving out, you hear it all the time, moving from Cali to Texas, oh, you taking your Cali money so you can buy in Texas. And I think a little bit of that was there. And I think the impression was, yeah, we'll rent for a year or two and then we'll look to buy. We started to run the numbers and whatnot. We're just like, it just doesn't make sense right now. It doesn't make sense at all. And that's where, the realization came in like, okay, start to shift what's the priority in our life and what
Yeah,
makes sense. What the numbers will tell you everything, right?
sure.
So, speaking about numbers, just this is actually found this kind of funny. Just 8% of Gen Z believe they'll never own a home. Just 8%. And then from there, it starts to go up compared to millennials, 22%,
Yeah,
Gen X, 40%, and
right.
then 81% of baby boomers, if they don't have a home at this point, they believe they'll never have a home. Obviously, that's going to go up with age.
Sure.
Gen Zs, they're just hitting their career, they're getting
Right.
their first jobs and whatnot. They feel like they can do anything,
Sure.
as they should. So interesting statistic there.
And this is not fear mongering, guys. This is just like us giving, to like statistics and saying,
That's
and
it.
you're always going to be more optimistic and youthful, right, in your youth. Millennials are at the place of that, and Gen X talk about us, baby boomers talk about us. I need people to understand something. There's probably never been another generation that has seen as much other than maybe the silent generation, which went
Hmm.
through World 1 and 2, probably, which
Hmm.
that's just, that's a whole different, you can't compare to that.
Hmm.
But in our living, in the people that are still alive and coherent, and millennials have seen a lot. And what I mean by that is like .com,
Hmm.
Y2J, right? 9/11, we were like in high school, some of us, right? And then moving into the space of 2008, which was a Black Swan
2008.
event, and then boom,
Yeah.
pandemic. There's quite a few number of things that have kind of shaped millennials' thought processes. And I don't like, so when you give that information, I don't think people really think about the experiences that they've seen, which kind of push them in a place of saying, like, mm, I don't
Hmm.
know, you know?
Yeah. So I do want to throw this out here before we transition.
Mhm.
The renting cost has also risen as well. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts about that? And you've been sending me, we've been kind of going back and forth about some videos
yeah,
of man, I forgot the name of the channel, but they basically go to different cities in Texas and
yeah,
basically get down to the root of what's going on in these cities, right?
yeah,
A lot of foreclosures going on in San Antonio was a big one.
yeah.
Dallas was a big one, and a lot of new housing developments, a lot of new
Austin as
apartments.
well.
Yeah, Austin as well. And I think they even said that Dallas leads the nation in the amount of apartments they are building, which is
Yeah.
insane. And I agree with it. Um, what are your thoughts about the raising of rent costs? And do you feel like in places like Texas, could we see a decrease in rent?
Yeah, so there's two things that are influencing that in Texas, and this is me being a native, I won't say native Texan, but basically growing up in Texas, and now moving to California. So I went the opposite of Chris. So if you want to see, there's two things. Number one, California, right? So the people from out of state moving to Texas during the pandemic, that plays a big role because they brought an influx of income that they would accept or pay something above asking on a housing cost, which basically it's a direct correlation from mortgage costs, right?
Hmm.
It was going to happen because if someone that owns the house or the apartment complex is paying more to build it or to own it, eventually those costs get passed over to the renter, right? So that was going to happen. Um, and then I think that honestly, probably within the next 3 to 5, maybe even 2 to 5 years, you'll start to see rent in Texas probably go back down. The economy being what it is, and I say that on the premise that it's probably going to take another 5 to 10 years to see like EVs and stuff take over more, sustainability to take over more, then you'll start to see again another flux in rent with people. Texas is an oil-based economy. That's where the majority of that and energy base, current energy, the way that it's being is
Hmm.
what's running Texas. So we'll see. I do think in like 2 to 5 years, the rent will start to go down again, but housing costs will start to go down again as well. But the key that people need to focus on is where do the interest rates go?
Hmm.
Because between 2 to 4% was the normal interest rate on a 30-year fixed loan. So after this, if that normality or the normal number shifts to between 4 to 5, that totally changes the game
Hmm.
for everybody. Like if the normal rate on a 30-year fixed loan is 5%, from 2.5 now, that's what you got to look at as well, and this is for highly qualified people,
Yeah.
so we'll
And we're
see.
sitting around 7% or just under 7%,
Yes,
I think.
7, it depends, 6.9 to like
Yeah.
7.05 or something like that, I think. Yeah.
Man, crazy. Yeah, it's interesting because I asked that question, and for myself, it's hard to see, and I would love to see like in 2 to 5 years, is there still as many people coming to Texas from
It's already
California,
shifting. It's already changing. They're starting to, I was looking at it the other day, the
Austin?
numbers, yeah, for people
Yeah,
moving back to California,
yeah.
moving from Texas, now that things have kind of stabilized a little bit, and Austin in particular.
Hmm.
Austin is a huge indicator. Yep.
So they're moving back because they feel like California is stabilizing a little bit more.
I feel like they feel that, but then they also, it's a way of life, it's a culture thing as well.
Yes, it has to be a culture thing.
Texas has its own culture, and I'm gonna be honest, as a Texan, we're not very welcoming to Californians. It's a complete opposite uh,
That's a fact.
of mindset, completely
That's
different.
that's a fact. I'm telling you, anytime I tell people that I'm from Cali, the first thing they're gonna say is, "Oh, you one of them Cali folks that came out
It's
here,
a
huh?"
well,
And
because
it's not like we hating on you, but like we see you type of
they
thing, and don't
don't
come over here and change us.
Texans don't want Californians in Texas. I'm just going to be honest. It's a complete different thought process.
It
For
is.
you're more. I'd say you're more Texas, but California has its own thought process. And I'm out here, and I'm like, dude, I don't think nothing like how y'all think, and it's okay. I mean, it's cool. Everybody has their place, but yeah, it's you're either a Texas person or a California person, and that
Hmm.
has a lot to do with what we're about to talk about, which is you making money, right? But
Yeah.
it's that's a piece of it. I want to live simple versus I got to earn a ton of money to live where I'm living.
Yeah. And good transition. The next thing we want to hit on is $1 million wealth gap now divides white families from Black and Hispanic families. I posted
Wow.
this on Instagram. I want to read some of the comments as we get into the conversation because some
Okay.
people had some interesting things to say. But average family wealth by race in 2022. All right, this is the year 2022. Asian families are at the top of the list. Now, there's only four different races on here to
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
Asian families, about $1.8 million. White families, 1.3 million. Then you got to go all the way down. Hispanic families, Latinos, about $200,000, not millions. And then Black right below that, just literally right under that at $200,000 as well.
Hmm. That's a I want to hear the comments first. I don't want to respond because you know what's funny? You and I had
Yeah,
a off camera conversation where
yes,
we looked at
we
some
did.
things, and then you were like, "Dang, I never like," and we were going back and forth. We were talking to each other and both getting each other's points. So I want to hear the
Yeah,
comments
okay.
first before I
Okay.
even.
Let me go to IG real quick. I'm gonna go to the and all I did was post the I literally said, just look at these numbers, basically.
Just
That's all I said. They weren't attacking me. They're being cool, but here's a couple things.
okay.
This individual had something to say. He said, these numbers make sense. My family is not and will never be united like wealthy families.
Yep.
He says it's every man for himself in my family.
Yep.
Some are doing well, others not so much.
Yep.
So I can respect that. And I say,
Yep.
I appreciate that perspective. Let's see. Someone said we are the only ones to blame for this coming from a proud Hispanic. People not focused, we not investing.
Mm,
Here's a comment about Asians. Let's be real, Asians are spending all their money on nonsense. They're getting married, they don't have kids out of wedlock, are excellent scholars, parents,
mhm,
expect literal 3.8, and
mhm,
above
mhm,
us, black and brown students don't have that.
mhm,
Finances aren't taught at home.
mhm.
This is the way the system was designed. There was another one that got like 17 likes. Let me see if I can find what that was actually the one.
Okay.
So yeah, various different, and this is the last one I'll read. Asians work nonstop, save their money, stay married, and become business owners. The formula is simple, really, but you want to make it seem as it's some sort of magic wand.
Hmm.
Okay.
Not a magic one. I mean, us as
Yeah,
black and
let me read one more. One
go
more.
ahead. No, no, go ahead.
These are the comments, man. It's the ones we getting. So it says somebody said not true. Black, brown, and Latinos will be behind white folks in the U.S. for another 100 years due to systematic oppression in the past. Or
Hmm.
we may have more opportunities now. We have to understand how we
Hmm.
got here.
Hmm.
That's the last one I'll read.
Hmm. Let's start with that one. That's very true.
Yeah.
I think it's a slight. I think it's a slight for anyone to. It's a two-edged. It's a double-edged sword. I do agree. We need to do better. Financial literacy. We're just now trying to get to where that's important. It's not as important as it should be. Um, you know, EYL talks about this all the time. Name
Hmm.
the people that you look up to. Black and brown people are going to talk about entertainers, athletes, music people, and in the white community, they're going to talk about scholars, ingenious people that come up with things that change the world. Um, and we need to work on that. So that, yeah, but that's changing, and you're
Hmm.
seeing a shift now that people start like where the financial people helping you to make money is more important than you listening to BS. That's changing. I'm starting to see a shift in
Yep.
that. But it's a slight on the history of this country for us to say that that's the only reason why.
Talk about it.
It's very true that systematic, we talk about redlining, we talk
Hmm.
about actual systematic things that were created and placed in the communities of us to make us be where we're at, for us
Hmm.
to arrive at the place where we're at right now. So, when you're behind 450 years on a group of people, it's going to take time to catch up. I think we actually can, but the wealth gap is only getting to that point because there were some systems that were in place.
Hmm.
And if someone created a system, they're going to have an upper hand if they created the system, right? Um, and that's no shot at anybody, however, whatever. But I do feel that we need to prioritize financial literacy. We talk about that all the time here. That's why this show is here. So we need to prioritize that. And I feel
Hmm.
like if we get off focusing of what the systematic approach was and why we're at where we're at, focus on it, admit it, right? And you know, cool, that's what it is or what it was. But now we need to focus on shortening that gap in a time period that's feasible for us. And I think we can actually do it if we make it important to have financial literacy and focus on that and growing wealth and learn how to invest and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. I definitely agree with you that we are shifting to a time where people are focusing on things that are actually a priority in their lives and not as much as the BS. There's still a lot of it out there. We're working towards it. But there has been some growth there. We can't deny that at all, right? Perfect example. Um, Shout out to you mentioned Earn Your Leisure
Mhm.
Invest Fest,
Mhm.
getting 20,000 people in the
It's
room to
crazy.
talk about business, economics, investing is
That wouldn't
is
have happened 10 years ago.
of color too,
Of color.
is insane.
Peacefully, peacefully,
Peacefully.
peacefully. I want to
I just
state
got the chills saying that. I mean, it's
peacefully,
shout out to, the people that are involved with EYL and that are
for sure.
also
For
pushing
sure.
the narrative as well. There's other people that were, invited there, and we believe we're some of those people as well.
Yeah.
So
And I think we
100%.
should be able to do that for, I believe we should be able to do that for Latinos. Not to say
Yep.
we're not, because maybe if you, me and Chris, yeah, Afro Latino, we could, I mean, it's whatever, it's a color or whatever. That's a
Right.
whole different type of conversation. It's a different thing. Maybe one day we'll have to broach that.
Yeah.
But I believe in the Latino side of things, like we could do the exact same thing. And I think we could focus on it, even on initiatives, having people that talk about initiatives of when you come to this country, different things that could help you to get integrated and
Hmm.
assimilated and grow to be that business owner.
For
Different
sure.
programs and different learning the tax code, someone teaching you how to navigate the US tax code, someone teaching you how to build your business, someone teaching you how to what products or what things you should do to look into, just things like that. I think that
Hmm.
there's a space for that for sure.
100%.
That's
There's
just
definitely a space for
my
that.
opinion.
Um, there's one thing about the article that just I don't know, didn't really sit right with me. So when it comes to it, this is directly from the articles. It says when it comes to the solutions, the report proposes a series of policy changes to help close the racial wealth gap, including limits to mortgage interest tax deductions and a reparations for Black Americans. Now, I'm like, all right, I got to know what these policy changes are. I'm looking them up, man. I didn't find nothing. Maybe I got to look a little bit longer, but I did not find no policy changes. Maybe you know some that I don't, but found it interesting that those were the solutions that were suggested.
Well, number one, you're going to suggest things, and that's from a narrative that's placed on it. You're going to suggest things that probably will never happen. You're
Correct.
not going to, and there's a reason for that, right?
Hmm.
You could say that most Black people Black and Hispanics would waste the money and it would go whatever, right? Maybe you say that. Maybe that's from a standpoint they feel that. I feel on the other hand, there's a little bit of fear that if I
Mm,
give you
mm,
$1 million and we're seeing already it heading in the direction of people actually now starting to prioritize financial literacy and talking to Black Wall Street and communities of Hispanics that are growing and business owners and all that. If you gave them money, what would happen? Maybe they'd actually be able to level up. Maybe they'd be able to invest, and then they start being toe to toe with people that maybe don't want you in that position, right?
that's a good point, not to cut you off, because every time we hear about reparations or giving money back, we always hear about like, oh, are people going to trick it off and do something funny with it? But what if we had the other perspective of like, what if they don't? Like, what if there's a group of people that don't and actually do something with it?
But that's the perspective that they have. They don't have the perspective
Hmm.
because they would give you the money to let you trick it off. See, they give you just enough money government wise, they give you just enough money in welfare, things like that, for you to stay within the cyclical nature of that system. If I gave you a certain amount of money where all your needs are met, then you start to think outside of survival.
Yeah.
Now you think of thriving and
Yep.
abundance.
There it
So
is.
maybe if you got into that mind frame, we have people in places that I don't want them in. Because really, America's not so much even racist. I mean, it was, but now it's more classes.
Mm.
You get enough money, you can do pretty much whatever you want to do.
Do
Because really,
whatever you
money
want.
talks. So, you got good credit and a whole bunch of money, and you can do a lot of things. So I feel like you let people get into that space. We're in neighborhoods and in places and in schools. Our kids are in schools and things. And then we start to, you give it a generation or two, and then the catch up is very quick. I
Hmm.
want people to really notice that. I want people to really think in the last 50, 60 years, Black and Hispanic people, how where we've come from, just being
Talk
able to
about
be
it.
able to vote, it's progressed like we're lightning.
Bro,
We're like it's lightning. Like
it's
the amount
insane.
of progress we make in just that short period of time. So imagine another two generations, but
Mm.
now there's even more, but then there's money. Like think about it. People know it. It's yeah. I'm just gonna tell you this. They
Oh,
know
you
what would
talking.
happen. They know
No, you
what would
talking.
happen.
You
Yeah.
talking for sure.
They
Hey,
know what would happen. And I'm
yeah.
not saying that, there's fears. And I've watched some things from people from certain belief system and stuff, and they say, if you give them money, what happens if they do what we did to them?
Mm.
I don't believe that that would happen because I think we're as like Black and brown, we're much more forgiving. I think we're caring. I think there's a lot of things that happen. We've shown that we're
Hmm.
kind of right. I don't believe that that's what happened, but there's fears of that happening. right? You get put us into power, and we start learning investing, and we start making money. So rules start to change. It's weird, man. You start to see different things.
Hmm. Love it. Yeah, so we're gonna link both of these articles down below. There's a lot more
I want to
statistics
hear
and stuff.
I want to hear what they say. I want to hear what people think. I want to
Yeah,
hear.
100%. Are you talking about referring to these articles
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. I want to hear, especially this last one we talked about with the
yeah?
wealth gap. I kind of want to. I want to see what the listeners, what our subscribers. I want to see what you think about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for sure. Send us an email, comment. We've been getting a lot more people commenting. I'll probably make another post on Instagram to get you guys' thoughts and opinions. Uh, man, this was a good episode right here. Definitely a lot of good information in here, a lot of information for you guys to marinate on and think about and hopefully apply as well. And as always, we come on here weekly. We don't ask for much. All we ask that you share this episode with one other person that needs to hear this types of information. All right. Let's be honest. Nobody else is coming on here as consistent as us that's giving it to y'all like we are giving it to y'all. All right. So just do us a favor, share this episode with one other person. It'd mean a lot to us. And with that being said, it's a lot more family. Catch you guys next week. Peace.